the October 18th, 2023 meeting of the Southborough Personnel Board to order. First order of business, approval of the minutes, which are circulated in advance. Any changes or corrections to the minutes?
No.
Oh,
Just wanted to note that I believe the date of the meeting was left off of the header, so it should say September 13th, 2023.
okay. I move that the minutes be adopted with that change. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Mr. Malinowski,
Aye.
Mr. Zansky,
Aye.
chair votes aye. Minutes are approved. Expenditure ledgers are in your package. We still haven't spent anything. I would like to start focusing on training particularly. So maybe as we get through the financial stuff, we can focus on that moving forward. Next order of business, new hire report. Vanessa.
We have just one addition this month to tell you about. That's Deborah Ferrante, who actually started this past Monday morning as the new assistant town accountant. She's doing a wonderful job so far and is already off in Vadar training with the town accountant today.
Great, welcome, Deborah. Moving on, salary grid implementation analysis. So that the new document, there's two sort of spreadsheets. One, the second one is just sort of the approach that we had talked about last year. And it's just in the packet for reference. The first document, which is at pages 7 and 8, essentially reflects doing it somewhat differently, which is putting people on the grid at the point closest to where they were, and then giving them for discussion purposes, a 3% increase from that. And this shows the result of that analysis. And as you can see, it does quite a bit level, reduces the discrepancy somewhat. So people are closer to the 3%, and the people who fall below don't fall below by a huge amount. Jason, did you want to say anything about this? I know this is the proposal that you've been advocating for.
Yeah, no, I mean, the only difference between this and the last meeting, right, was the 0.5%, right? So the reason there's very few yellow highlights on this is everyone moved up unless they were 0.5% or lower away from the lower step. And I continue to stand behind what I said at the last meeting, that anyone that would be in the yellow here, that I think the way to make this right and hopefully get consensus moving forward, if this was the path we so chose, would be to give these people, whether it be a couple dollars or a couple $100, whatever the number is that appears under cost to get on FY24 draft grid. We give that to them in perpetuity, as long as they're at least a employee of the town of Southborough, and adjust it by a COLA each year, so that they don't feel like they lost anything. So it would be basically an additional line item. We'd have to craft some language for the SAP to deal with this class of employees, and then naturally over time it would disappear due to retirements or separation from the town. So my goal would be to make everyone whole, but like you mentioned, Barry, it does significantly narrow the gap of how much certain people are getting just based on kind of where they fell coming into the year in this grid adoption, and it in my opinion levels the playing field.
Okay, so Brian, I have a question about administration. So if we were to do that, if we were to give them an amount each year to level the playing field, is that going to be hard for you to track or keep administer?
I believe we would just put it in their departmental budgets every year. We just have to have a separate spreadsheet or something to see who the people are. I mean, it wouldn't be overly burdensome. We could do it, certainly.
Okay, so, and I'm in favor of doing this. I'm just trying to think through, so their rate would not be what's shown in the grid.
No, it would.
It would, but then we're,
Going to give them something supplemental essentially to that, but it'd be a separate line item. So they'd always be mapped to a grid in a step moving forward. But this would be just, it'd be a separate line item, but the key is to make it pensionable, right? So that would be up to our benefits and administration team to figure out how to make that work over the 26 pay periods of the year.
okay. I just want to make sure, Brian, you're on board with the approach, that there's no issues that you see in doing
I
it.
just want to, are we talking forever or?
I think that's what Jason's suggesting.
Well, I mean, that was the intent. I mean, let's just talk dollars for a second. The largest individual here would be $291 a year. We have some that are $35, $20, $7. I would advocate, and I know it's not pensionable, like those, I think we should just dispose of with like a one-time payment now. But I realize that's making it even more complicated, but my goal would be to make it up. But I mean, the $7.80, I think the person's getting far greater benefit by getting this grid implemented. But I get a little more sympathetic once we get up to those that are in the $200 range.
Jason, is there no way to fix the ones that are the higher amounts, the $200 range with movement in the grid?
Well, I think if you go to the next one, which I think is Barry's proposal, it's going to cost you a couple $1,000s in perpetuity a year. And then I think that's where the inequity, in my opinion, comes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you end up with people getting 2% more. There are people who
Yeah,
get 5%. So certainly a higher cost. It's just a matter of being 100% comfortable that we know what we're doing moving forward, and we're
And that Brian can do it.
yeah.
I mean, this will be an annual.
We can do it. I think you'll see some drop off, like Jason said, because some of them, I think, are from departments that have a lot of.
Right.
So you're gonna see some drop right off quickly.
Okay.
12, I think there's 12.
Sure, there are 12, I think 12 who,
You've got 12 and only 3 are above $200.
yeah, 5 of them are part-timers. Um,
I'm just wondering what I'm just with Mark trying to roll this out a little bit. What's the authority of, like, do we have to put this in the SAP somehow, or does it fall under your policy type stuff?
yeah, I mean, we would have to adopt a policy, because I don't think there's any way to do it in the
Okay,
SAP.
okay,
Just say, we're essentially saying we're giving a 3% increase.
Yep.
And people will be placed on the grid a certain way, and then our policy is moving forward. Anybody who fell below the 3% would get a supplemental payment each year to make sure they get the full amount of whatever increase we give in that year. You do raise the question of authority to, but I mean, the essay. I mean, we vote an increase every year that the increase shows up in which will show up in the grid, but up to now, it doesn't show up at all in the SAP.
Correct. It's not writing in the SAP.
Right. So I think we clearly have the authority to vote the increase. We're just making sure that everyone gets the increase. I would argue.
But
It's-
sorry to interrupt. I was going to say, I think you can put it in the SAP too as part of the grid adoption. Just like if we add the grid to the SAP this year, you can just put employees, like we can craft the language with Kate effectively, but just say employees that came onto the grid effective July 1 of 2024 that saw a potential decrease in step shall be entitled to this, that is distributed in a pensional manner until separation from the town.
I think it's clunky to put it in the SAP. I think that's a policy issue that can be derived from the change in the SAP.
I don't care where you put it. I think, but I think we have, I think
Yeah.
we're adopting something, so we should be able to derive this.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm comfortable that we have the authority to do it because it's not spending any money that we're not approving. That it's within the increase that we have the authority to vote. So I would be comfortable doing it that way, but obviously we have to have a policy and explain it to employees that this is what's going to happen. So any further discussion on this proposed approach that's in pages 7 and 8 in the packet? Okay, obviously we haven't gotten to, we will get to next, the amount of an increase, but why don't we have, and I'll make a motion that the board adopt the approach for implementation of the salary grid in the SAP for FY25, the approach that's laid out in pages 7 and 8 in our packet.
So moved.
For a second,
Second,
okay. Further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Thorburn.
I'll abstain.
Okay, Ms. Jasinski.
Aye.
Mr. Malinowski.
aye.
Chair votes aye. That is approved. Okay, that's progress. And thank you for coming up with that approach, Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
And can
All right.
Barry, just for I think a second motion potentially is in order to basically memorialize the conversation we just had around those employees that are showing as yellow here.
Yeah.
So I'll move that pursuant to the prior vote that we work with the town administrator to adopt a policy to make whole the employees that are seeing a potential decrease as part of the salary grid implementation.
Okay.
I just want to be clear, because they're not going to have a decrease. They're just not going to wouldn't get the full amount of whatever.
That's fine. I will withdraw that and just, I'll move that the personnel board pursuant to the prior vote, work with the town administrator to work on a policy related to those employees that are not seeing the full 2% step increase.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, further discussion? Seeing none, vote, Mr. Thorburn? Aye. Ms. Jasinski?
Aye.
Mr. Malinowski?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. that is approved. Okay, moving on to FY 25 compensation. We have number of documents in the packet, including an updated list of information from various towns on what they are doing this year. We have the more recently updated CPI number and the other documents you've seen before. I did note that there seems to be quite a disparity between the towns that have a grid and those that don't in terms of what they're doing for increases. But given just historically, we didn't adopt the grid last year in part because we were doing a fairly large annual increase, and we thought the additional cost of implementing the grid might be burdensome for the town. I'm not sure we're in a much different position this year. I had thought we would be, but I'm not sure we are. From my own perspective, I could support another 4% increase. I think it's consistent with what other towns are doing, certainly consistent with the CPI and the other information we have, but I will throw it open for discussion.
Barry, when you say 4%, are you saying COLA plus step or just COLA? Just for clarity.
We haven't implemented the grid. So the total, the way I would think about it is sort of the same way we did last year, 2% step and 2% COLA.
But didn't we just essentially implement the grid subject to town meeting in the vote we just took 5 minutes ago?
Well, but you're going to have, I mean, you're going to have to, if you vote if we want to do a 4% increase, then you're going to have to increase the grid by 4%, right?
Which means someone's getting a 6% increase in
No,
most instances.
This grid that we're using, and maybe there's confusion, this is a grid for the current fiscal year.
Understood.
Not for next fiscal year. So if we're going to use the grid from FY 24, we have to increase that. If we were going to do a 4% increase, we'd have to increase that grid by 4%.
I completely agree, which means that in most instances, individuals would be getting a 6% increase because they'd move a step, and that step would be 4% higher in your example.
Well, they wouldn't move a step. It would be, okay, I'm confused now. So we didn't place people on the grid, but they got a 4% increase last year, right? I mean, we don't have a grid currently.
But by virtue of the vote we just took, we've essentially mapped everyone as if they were on the grid in FY 24. So for example, if I was step 1 in that schedule we just voted, I think the expectation is that they're moving to step 2 next year.
Okay, and maybe there was confusion in my mind that I thought what we would do, okay.
We're going to get to the same answer, I think, but I just want to be clear on each, because remember, there's also department head contracts that are tied to this vote that obviously is well beyond our authority, but we need to just basically be, I think, clear this year what's a COLA and what's a step increase, if any, depending upon the implementation here.
Okay. So what you're saying, I think if I understand, and I'm not going to repeat how I struggle with numbers, that we really would just be, if we went with a 4% increase, we'd just be increasing the grid by 2%.
Essentially, if your goal is to get everyone a 4% increase, we would change the FY24 hypothetical grid in the packet by 2% and call that a COLA.
Okay. All right, I think I understand that now. Okay, let's go back to the discussion of the actual amount of the increase. I said I would be comfortable with 4%, but I'm interested in what other people think.
You change the grid 2% and then
People would move up a step, so they get 2% plus 2%.
I would be in favor of that.
John?
This consumer price index here is right now at this is a national. This is right now 3.7.
Yeah,
What? So it's 3.2 for the year. No, 3.7 for the year so far.
right.
We've still got September, October, and November to go. With all that's going on. With all that's going on in the world. It's got nowhere to go but up. Middle East war, and you've got gasoline prices and whatnot. You think they're high now. I think that we've got to go with what the national increase is, and then whatever you want to add on top of that, but
Well, when you say go with, you mean go with 3.7%?
well, yeah. Let's round it off to make it 4. It's gonna be 4 anyway. And then whatever you gotta do to. Quite honestly, I abstained on them because I'm still lost in all these charts.
I understand.
You are not.
I know the feeling. Jason?
So I'm at a minimum of a 4% for a floor. I think this is somewhere where John was going. The whole purpose of putting the grid in place, right, was to reward service to the town, right, and for employees to know that if they stay a long period of time, they're going to have basically what I'll call a guaranteed increase every year for their tenure, their experience, et cetera. And I think we see it coming with some of the agenda items we have coming up here with some of the requests Mark has for the new hires. So we're really giving them a 2% COLA and a 2% experience / tenure increase if we did 4%. I'm incredibly mindful of the budgetary implications of any decision that we make here. But I would prefer we start with a 2.5% COLA, not a 2% COLA, which would get you to a 4.5 total for everyone.
Okay.
Do you want to increase the grid by 2.5% for 25, Jason?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean,
What's the financial impact on that? Brian?
Give me a minute, maybe.
Let's try to.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard. Would you take this number?
Just
Add.
It's gotta be about 30 plus thousand.
Perhaps.
Oh, perhaps it's not 15.
Just a half or so.
Yeah.
Jason, do you know what a 1% would be? Is that around 30 grand, 35
Well,
grand?
if I'm looking at the sheet we just did, right?
34.
For a full percent?
Yes.
So a 0.5% would add say 17.
So 2.5% would be about $86,000.
So it adds 86,000.
So. Yeah, I mean, it's,
34,000.
Hmm?
It's 34,000 for a full point? For
Yes.
12%, so half of that would be
That
17.
17.
so what is the full cost then of, with the approach that we've adopted, putting people on the grid and getting 4.5%? Yeah,
Valley Jason's adjustments.
What adjustments, Brian?
All the adjustments to the yellow
The
adjustments.
yellows are under $1,000, I think.
Yeah, so it's probably small amounts. So the total would be about 112. At 2.5%. At the 2.5, plus.
plus the, right,
I mean, I'd ask the personnel board to think about, we're making a recommendation. Obviously, there's multiple boards that then will have to craft budgets and review budgets. And, we're not privy to the entire financial situation of the town. We all know it's tight, right? It's always tight. But I think they can come back to us and ask for more clarity, but we can only work with the data that we have in front of us and the experience that we have in front of us between the CPI data, what other towns are doing, and the experience we're having with our current SAP employees.
yeah, I mean, it's difficult, there's no right answer. And we obviously have responsibility to balance the interests of our employees with the interest of taxpayers. So it's difficult to do that in a way that comes out where everybody thinks it's fair. I mean, we certainly have data that supports, if we want to go to the 2 and 2.5, data from other towns, particularly that support that. And most of the towns that are doing COLAs are doing 2.5%. There are a few at 2, and certainly the ones that have grids, their overall numbers are going to be in excess of what we would do at 4.5%. So we can justify it. Where I had meant to, and I didn't go back and look at what the numbers looked like when we did 4% last year. And are the numbers significantly higher in the survey data in the CPI than what we saw last year? And I don't know, because I didn't go back and look. I don't oppose 4.5, but people feel that's where they want to go.
Well, how are you breaking that down to 4.5?
Well, it'd be 2% step on the grid and a 2.5% COLA.
I'm not opposed to the 4.5. I mean, we're gonna go for. Help some employees, I don't see with the 17,000 plus the little. Few adjustments we have to make on an annual basis. I don't see that that's really. Gonna have a major impact. So I would be in favor of the 4.5, the 2% of the grid and the 2.5.
Okay. Yeah.
Two. 2 and 2.5, that's okay with me.
Okay, and we know it's okay with Jason, so is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll move that the Personnel Board recommend adjustment of the FY24 hypothetical grid to increase each item by 2.5%.
We were doing the COLA, not the grid, the COLA.
Well, to work out that way because there's 2% in between steps and people will move up a step.
Never mind, Jason.
Is-
I'm good.
We're saying the same thing.
Yeah, that's fine. I got it.
No, that was the
It's just
confusion.
getting very confusing.
That was the confusion I had as well.
Okay,
Um,
we're good.
All right. So
I second.
Yeah. It's 25, that's why 25.
It's FY
To
25.
increase this grid saying 2.5%, adjust the 124 grid on the back.
The 20.
Oh,
Okay.
The 2.6.
Yes, this is the interpreter.
Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Thorburn.
Aye.
Mr. Zensky,
I,
Mr. Malinowski.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That is approved. Surprised and pleased we got through that so quickly.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to the purple. You have a couple of items for us.
I do. The first item is the business administrator 1 in the building department. I believe that's the first one we're taking up.
Yeah.
Obviously, we had a resignation early last month. There's been a search process that commenced. Ms. Hale has been shepherding these processes. I just want to acknowledge and thank her for, for the work that she does with that. We did a couple of rounds of interviews. I do want to correct my memo that it was not the conservation administrator, it was the deputy health director who sat in on the interviews in the first round. And we did come out with a successful candidate. We did have tentative acceptance of an offer. The starting rate is below the midpoint for the range in grade A4, so it does not require approval from this board. But the 3 weeks of vacation is something that is necessary for this board to approve. The second mistake in the memo, the candidate has about 6 years of experience working in the building department of the municipality, not just shy of 5, it's 6, as well as other experience. And based on that, I would ask that the board approve a 3rd week of vacation for the new employee. The select board will be meeting tomorrow morning, hopefully to do that appointment, but I wanted to make sure that all of these loose ends were tied up, background check, and everything has been completed. So we're excited to get somebody in who actually is doing the job in another community, who is familiar with online permitting systems, is familiar with building departments. So I think Case is pretty excited to get somebody in who's really got an experience and is going to be able to hit the ground running and help him out right away.
And also a Southborough resident.
Yes, that too.
Excellent. And with my error in the agenda, obviously, there's no new hire compensation issue with this individual. The individual clearly meets the criteria in the SAP to be entitled to the vacations. Any discussion? Okay, I would move that the personnel board approve 3 weeks vacation for the new hire in the business administrator 1 position in the building department. Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Seeing none, vote, Mr. Thorburn. Aye. Mr. Zansky.
Aye.
Mr. Malinowski.
Aye.
Votes aye, that is approved.
I do want to point out that the chair's error in the agenda had nothing to do with you. It probably is because of the subject line, which was the third mistake in the memo, that noted pay rate. So that led you to your agenda item. So
Vanessa must have.
I appreciate that. That's not the reason,
Yeah.
but I appreciate it anyway.
I agreed to take my lumps this morning from Ms. Hale. So
Okay, moving on to the business admin in the treasurer's office.
yeah, I didn't hear anything about this one, so I think this one's pretty good. It's just, it's error free. Obviously, we had our business administrator 1, which is our payroll and benefits person in the treasurer's office, resigned at the end of last month to take a position in another community with a little more responsibility in terms of overseeing additional employees. So again, search process commenced. We went through the processes outlined in the memo. And again, very fortunate to be able to have somebody who is interested in position and who we've come to agreement with tentatively, who is working in another Massachusetts municipality. I will simply say that there are a lot of communities out there right now that are struggling in terms of change in their senior management level positions. And some employees, are looking for places with more stability and good management. And we continue to offer that, and it makes it attractive. This employee, has several years of experience, in mass municipalities with payroll and human resources. They've also got additional experience in payroll services in the private sector. They do happen to be using the same financial system and the same payroll system that we do. So they'll be able to come in and have great familiarity. And again, I think Brian's breathing a sigh of relief that, this person's coming in and is going to have, not a steep learning curve on some of these things because they're very familiar with the systems. In fact, their use of the payroll system is a little bit ahead of what we're currently doing with the system. So I think it'll be great for the employees if we can make that step. So I'm requesting a starting pay of $31.55. Again, this is a grade A4. The midpoint right now is 30.02. So I'm requesting approval of the pay rate above the midpoint. And given the experience, I'm also requesting the 3 weeks of vacation for the position. Same as the last position, the select board will be seeking to appoint tomorrow morning. Background checks, everything has been completed, everything came back fine.
So how did you come up with the 31.55?
So a little bit of negotiation, but I wanted to try to get it on or close to a step in the proposed new grid that you just approved. So I'm trying to if at all possible, I'm trying to minimize any adjustments that will have to be made. So again, I was hoping or assuming or, kind of planning that you would be putting this grid in place with steps and try to make the rate fall on what a proposed step would be.
Okay, and I applaud you for doing that. That makes everyone's life easier if we get them on the grid. I guess my question is why step 11, not 10, or was it that you felt you needed to do that in order to get the candidate?
Yes. Yeah, I like I said, I mean, it's I had a lot of conversations with Mr. Valentine and with Ms. Hale. It's people who have the qualifications and the experience. There are far and few between, and everybody is looking for the same people. And so we need to pay a little bit more to make sure that we get the people that we want. They're going to benefit our organization. So that's really kind of where we're in. I mean, you've been pretty fortunate with a lot of the hirings. You haven't seen me come and ask for a starting pay above midpoint. We've been very fortunate. But there was no way that I could do it. And quite honestly, I didn't want to play around with my payroll and benefits person. It's an integral position. It's as important as any position we have in town. It's something that affects every single employee. So I want to make sure we got the right person.
Other questions?
I've got a question afterwards. I'm not having any problem with this. I just want to ask. And somebody just made a statement that they're looking for a city or a town with stability. Why are these people moving? Are they getting more dollars somewhere else, or why?
Well,
Why are
I
we
think
losing these good people? I mean,
the
why?
people that we have seen leave, John, I think it's more because of upward mobility. It's a bigger position. So for example, the payroll person who just left went to a position in another community, which is a bigger job. They're now supervising people. And so there's more responsibility, and with that comes more pay. I don't like to speak ill of any other municipality, but take a look at the issues that are going on in Northborough right now. They don't have a town administrator. They don't have an assistant town administrator, but they did appoint an interim, which is the administrative assistant in the select board's office, into the assistant town administrative position. The finance director just left, right? And so as an employee, you're not quite sure who's going to be the boss, who's going to be number two, who's handling the finances. And that creates some level of angst, as to what does it mean for me? So
I'd also add that, we saw a retirement with our assistant town accountant. Someone else left to go work in the private sector. With these First Amendment auditors, the way they're beating up on our public employees when they come in our buildings, people are not jumping at working in public service right now. So to get the people that we can find that are qualified, we're having to pay more than normal.
Be a pain. What if we had offered these people that are left, if we had offered them more money, would that have? If they want a better position?
So sometimes it's not just money, so in the instance of the former payroll and benefits person, we couldn't just all of a sudden provide more employees for them to supervise. We couldn't, do something like that. And the thing that Ms. Hale is very good at is sometimes it's not money. Sometimes it's quality of life. We had the previous IT manager who basically took almost the same job for almost the same money, but less than 10 minutes from his house. I can't fight that. I can't move the town. Right? So there are some things you can't compete with. So we try to, we try to put together the best package we can, and sometimes that means we're gonna have to pay a little bit more, to get the people that, that you want.
Yeah, I'm not faulting anything. I'm just trying to inform myself as to what might be going on.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, it's getting more difficult because everybody's looking for the same thing. And it's either you're gonna get somebody that you're gonna have to train, and there's gonna be a big learning curve. And we're seeing that now with police. You're not getting academy trained people, right? You're getting young people who want to be police officers, but then you need to put them through the academy. And it's going to be 9 to 11 months before they can be productive by the time they finish the academy and they get the field training and they're ready to go. So that's just the way it is right now.
It's very, very competitive. I understand that.
Yeah.
In my previous department, they interviewed, went through all the process and had hired an employee who was supposed to come to work at 8 o'clock in the morning on Monday. And they called at 6 o'clock and said they weren't going to come. They went to the neighbor in town because they gave them a better deal.
John, we had an employee, we had an employee that was our candidate that was appointed by the select board. And then less than a week before they were supposed to be here, they sent us a note saying they got more to say. Right? So it's just, I haven't seen that in my career up until the last couple of years, but unfortunately, you're seeing more of that now.
Right, I know Jason has a time commitment, so I want to move on. Jason, you have any questions on?
I have a little extra time than I anticipated, so I'm okay for now, but I appreciate it moving along. To John's point, not to belabor it, I think this goes to, I had asked at the last meeting about exit interviews, and I'd like to see that on the next agenda. On this particular request, I think this is just a reality of the times, to find someone that's experienced. And I think basically reinforces some of the decisions we just made a couple of minutes ago with the grid and paying for experience and tenure as well. My final question, though, on this item, I do support it. Is it going to create any sort of budgetary issues for you this year that you need to work through, Mark?
No, I don't think I don't think so. I don't think so for this year. No.
Okay. I support it.
Okay, let's do it in two motions. I move that the personnel board award 3 weeks vacation for the new hire for business administrator 1 in the treasurer collector's office.
Second.
All in favor, Mr. Thorburn?
Aye.
Mr. Jazinski?
Aye.
Mr. Malinowski?
Aye.
Their votes aye, that's approved. I move that we grant the new hire in business administrator 1 position in the treasurer collector's office a starting pay rate of $31.55 per hour.
Second.
All in favor, Mr. Thorburn?
Aye.
Mr. Jazinski?
Aye.
Mr. Malinowski?
Aye.
Their votes aye, that is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I did want to say before we get to the salary plan, administration plan amendments, I had hoped and I had promised, I think, that we were going to be looking at some job descriptions for this meeting. And to be fair, the town administrator's office did have them ready and they were presented to the select board last week, I believe, but the select board had some changes that they wanted to make.
More grammatical than substantive.
Yes, non-substantive, I'm told. So I'm hopeful that those will be approved at next meeting and that we can take care of them at our next meeting. All right, moving along to amendments to the SAP. And at this meeting, I don't plan to vote on any of these. These are just to start the discussions to see if there are any issues. So let's just go through them in order. In the first paragraph, this is language I propose to add And it has to do with the town administrator bylaw, which is in the packet at pages 36, it looks like. And it's really just paragraph A to A. And it's, what I'm trying to do is make the SAP consistent with that, because that bylaw says that the personnel board shall have guidance and oversight over the personnel director with regard to the development, maintenance, and administration of personnel policies and regulations. And there's nothing in the SAP that gives us the authority to do that. So this is just to make them consistent. I think it's timely because of what we're doing with the handbook, which would clearly fall within our purview if we make this change. There should be, just typographically, there should be a comma after, right before the addition, so after the word bylaw and right after the addition, the word regulations. Any comments or discussion about that?
No.
Okay. Moving along, on the next page, I just added some language on probationary employee to make it consistent with what I expect will be in the handbook, to make clear that there may be situations where the probationary period is extended for a variety of reasons. So I just wanted to make sure we had that flexibility in there. Any discussion about that?
No.
Okay, moving down to section 3. This is just clarification. The language didn't say that we needed to approve a job description as a first step. So I just added that in. So instead of just saying that we rate the position, it now says we would approve a job description, rate it. Go ahead, Margaret.
That's okay. section 3, newer Kang positions.
Yeah, there's some
Section
typos
4,
in there.
Employees, just 2 typos.
Yeah, thank you.
And there's also, that's an awkward sentence that says the board approve an appropriate job description should be shall.
Yeah,
So we need to add the word shall.
Yeah.
there. It's-
yeah, it was taken out.
Right, okay. Got it.
Okay, any discussion about that?
Mary, I just note there are some formatting issues when it's converted back to Word. Just need little blocks instead of letters or numbers. So we're gonna clean all that up.
Yeah.
I mentioned that to Vanessa
Yeah.
earlier.
Okay, moving along, I think the next one is 9B. I just added the last sentence, so it's consistent with the language we added for the definition of probationary employee. Discussion on that.
Why would they want to do that?
Well, there could be performance issues that don't warrant terminating the individual, but where further work with that employee
For training.
training is warranted. So you don't want to force the department head to make a decision at 6 months where they think they might be able to save the employee, but if their probation period ends in 6 months.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
One comment, given the earlier votes that you took this evening, this morning. I'm just trying to move this day along. In 9C, personnel director is empowered to set starting salaries not exceeding midpoint. So I think we'll have to have a discussion as to what step we would like that to be. So I think that just needs to be amended just to reflect that change. I just wanted to point
Yeah.
that out.
That's fine. Thank you. I think the next one is 11B2. Jason, do you want to speak to that?
He's been frozen for a little while.
Oh. Okay, that's unfortunate. Okay, well, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and we've talked about this extensively when we were looking at the vacation schedule last year. I don't have any problem with that, with what Jason is suggesting. So if there's no discussion about that, looks to be. And I think, yeah, page 30, this is section 16B. And again, this is essentially mirrors the language that we added. We will add at the beginning of the SAP to make clear that we provide guidance to the personnel director in maintenance and development personnel policies. And obviously, we will be changing Schedule A.
Right, so we're gonna increase that by 2.5%, correct?
Well, we're going to put in the grid.
Right.
And yeah, and increase it by 2.5%. Jason, I know we lost you for a while there. We covered a lot of ground.
I actually was here. I don't know why it went, but that would explain why you didn't hear me when I was speaking, and then it just kicked me out once I tried to speak. So I heard right up until you got to the part in section 11 that you were looking for me to weigh in on. Is that where you want me to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all good with it, but if you want to speak on it, speak to it, that's fine.
Nope. As long as there's no questions, I'm happy to say the words.
Okay, so were you there when we did 16B?
I was not, but I have no questions on that.
Okay. And as I said, obviously, we have to change Schedule A, replace it with an updated grid. Okay, well, that's not as many as we typically have. I'm happy about, because the grid is big enough in and of itself. Any other questions or suggestions about the SAP and changes to the SAP?
Just fix all the little boxes that are all over.
Yeah, the next time we'll have
And the missing letters.
a cleaner document, and hopefully we can vote on that and take care of that.
I do have one request. I know that every year, usually without fail, except for a couple, we've printed the entire SAP, which takes up a significant amount of space in the warrant, even though there's no changes. The board may want to consider, and we've done this once or twice since I've been here, is simply printing those sections that are changing. We normally do that with other bylaws and everything too, so it's something I'm asking the board just to consider.
We'll take that under advisement. Thank you. Is there any other business to come before the board?
No, just confirm the next meeting.
Well, first of all, public comment, anyone?
We'll do a Brian Donovan.
Okay,
Jay, I can't read him over.
good morning, Ryan.
Hey, so I'll be brief because I know you guys are trying to move everything along. I'm gonna provide a memo for your next meeting. There were just a couple suggestions on positions in the SAP. Some of it was stuff that kind of got lost in the shuffle from switching over from the previous version to the new one, if that makes sense. But one of it was an omission of a position called library associate, which we have a separate description for. Originally, the consultant from the pay and classification study had suggested combining two positions, but for some reason it wasn't separated out. So this is going to make more sense when I write it up, I promise. But I just wanted to let you know that I had a couple suggestions if they could be integrated for next time. Thank you.
Right, absolutely. You send them to Vanessa and we will certainly address them. Any other comments? Okay, board calendar. I believe we have November 8th date is our next meeting. Why don't we schedule the December meeting, would normally be on the 13th. Does the 13th work for everyone?
Yep.
John? Jason?
Because I'll be remote.
Okay.
You get me live if you go at the ends of the week, but the middle is tough.
I will be remote in November, but I'll be here.
All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
For a second,
Second.
all in favor, Mr. Thorburn,
Aye.
Mr. Zinsky,
Aye.
Mr. Malinowski.
Aye.
Your votes aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.